Gracias y que no pare esto, que siga, que continúe, que no sea esto y ya. Y yo sé que él no juegue, yo sé que esto va a terminar dándole la victoria y la libertad a todos los venezolanos. Estoy segura de que así va a ser y confiamos en este proceso.
Well, Saturday morning, I woke up early to the news that Donald Trump had ordered the U.S. military to do a daring raid to go straight into the heart of Caracas, the capital city of Venezuela, right into the heavily fortified presidential palace, go right in and scoop up, raid, snatch. Trump's enemies would say abduct or even kidnap the tyrant dictator of Venezuela, a man named Nicolas Maduro, and his wife, and to bring them back to America to face criminal charges for drug trafficking. Understand that they went in not to conquer or to defeat or to invade, but to grab the guy who called himself president. Now, that was a point of contention right there because, of course, the United States, both under Republicans and Democrats, Canada, the European Union, and most countries around the world had concluded that no, Nicolas Maduro was not, in fact, the president. He was a usurper. He was a false president who lost the election, but simply refused to leave the palace. The country remains under the governance of Maduro's cadres. His deputy was sworn in as his successor, and Maduro's own son was there to mark it. The Iranian, Chinese, and Russian diplomats were among the first to congratulate his successor. It was not a regime change yet. That might happen. It's very complex. It's very difficult, and there's so many things happening behind the scenes we simply don't know about. It's also a situation that we can't send reporters in. There's no way that we would risk sending reporters into Caracas. By the way, it's one of the most dangerous cities in the world from a simply crime point of view, let alone political crimes. And one of the things we learned after the snatch raid of Maduro was that his security was completely made up of Cubans, which is very odd. Venezuela has men who can have firearms, but of course there's two reasons to have Cuban bodyguards if you're a Venezuelan president. The first one is you might not be able to trust Venezuelans because they might think we've got to get rid of this tyrant, and a Venezuelan might have a greater emotional connection to Venezuela rather than to a usurper dictator. The second reason is a Cuban reason, because while you're protecting Maduro, you're also have him on a leash. You are also telling him what to do. He's your puppet. And for decades, Cuba has provided the muscle in Venezuela. Armed militias called colectivos would go around and do the dirty work of the regime. Cuba has deep interests in Venezuela, especially oil. Very, very interesting times. I think a moment will come when Venezuela will be free, and we will send rebel reporters to Caracas to talk to the people. That time is not yet. But what we did do, as you saw, is immediately send down Alexa Lavoie, our reporter based in Montreal, and Efrain Osvaldo Flores Monsanto, sometimes known as Efron, who is our head of video. And those two went straight down to Miami, and both of them know Spanish. And they were able to talk to the Venezuelan community, the exile community in Miami. We've been running reports, well, since Saturday on the subject. I'm delighted to be joined now by Alexa Lavoie, who is now safely returned to the snows of Montreal. Alexa, great to see you again. Thank you for going down to Miami. Of course, it looked like a nice break from winter, but you were there to work.
Yeah, it was short and sweet. And what we did, we went straight in the heart of the Venezuelan community exile in Durham. So I didn't even see the sea.
Well,
I didn't see the water, nothing.
I'm just joking around because, of course, I was in Toronto freezing my tush. But there were so many heartwarming and heartbreaking interviews you did. Tell us your impressions. You interviewed probably a dozen people, but more than that, you were just surrounded by hundreds of people. Who were they? What was their mood? Were they hopeful? I mean, Venezuela is not yet free. The tyrant is in handcuffs, but a new tyrant has sprung up, sort of like a many-headed hydra where you cut off one head and two heads reappear. So they're not quite free yet, but tell me how they felt. Were they excited? Were they hopeful? Were they exultant? Were they worried? What was the feeling?
During 2 days, we saw a celebration. What I heard so far is that early morning on Saturday, as soon as they heard the news, they took the street to celebrate. They celebrated all day long. And that celebration continued on Sunday. And everybody are unanimous. They are so happy. They are happy to see what is going on. And what they say is like they voted for this. They wanted this to happen. Because mainly we see leftists and Democrats saying that, oh, it was a violation of federal and international law. And also we see the leftists saying, oh, this is a selfish act. It just wanted to have the oil. But everybody on the ground, what they say, we never touched our oil anyway.
Yeah.
It was either China or Russia or other foreign country who wanted our oil, and we never touched any penny from that. So if we receive freedom in exchange, we will take it, and we will be more than happy to give our oil to the U.S.
Trump fue el único que nos ayudó y bueno, sí hay que reconocérselo, hay que agradecerle también porque nos tomó en cuenta. Hay otros países que viven en dictadura y todavía no han podido salir de ella. Nos dieron la oportunidad y hay que aprovecharla. Venezuela tiene muchos recursos intelectuales, hay muchos profesionales, médicos, ingenieros, arquitectos que estamos fuera del país y eso va a ser parte de lo que nosotros vamos a reconstruir al país.
This is untrue when people are saying, oh, you know, like it's a selfish act, because it's not only for oil, it's also for foreign influence, as you mentioned, the land of China, Russia, Hamas, Hezbollah, who is touching the ground in America. But the thing is, people have still some family over there. They are worried about them. Some of them flee their country under Chavez or Maduro. And most of them is because they were critic of the regime. And there were some people who actually refused to collaborate with Chavez when he wanted to spy on either employee or on the population. So because of that, they had to flee because if they didn't flee, they will be in jail as at the moment. What I've been told so far, more than 800 political prisoners are still in Venezuela.
Actually, we were living pretty good in Venezuela many years ago. We have been here, 20 years? And we were doing good until Chavez came. And then the army, and particularly, I work for the oil industry, and they came after me. So I had to leave the country. And after a couple of years, I had to bring all of my family. That's the reason. Otherwise, I didn't have any other reason to
What
come.
was the main reason why they came after
I
you?
was a manager in one of the oil industry companies. I was the IT manager. And they wanted me to allow them to listen to all of the phone conversation. And I said, no, you're not going to do that while I'm the manager. I'm not going to allow you to do that. And that, brought a lot of problem to me. And after a couple of years, I had to leave. Mm-hmm. They came after me because I didn't allow them. No, they that's communists. They don't care. I told them, you're not going to listen to the conversations. The people that I know the people here. I know how honest they are. I'm not going to allow you to listen to private conversations, but to find out, it's nothing here. No, that's not going to happen. You have to come to some other way, but not through me. And that's why. I mean, they went after everybody. That's what they've been doing for the last 26 years.
So what is the option? You're in the street, you don't critique the regime, and you starve, and you might be killed by the armed force. So everybody is pleased and he thanks Donald Trump for what he did. And when the mainstream media is saying otherwise, it's actually untrue. It's just lie.
You know, the French language version of CBC called Radio Canada had an atrocious tweet en français. It said that Maduro was a man of the people. And it reminds me of the super gross, obituaries that we had from the CBC and from Justin Trudeau when Fidel Castro died. And that man of the people, you put that, and you put other comments like that. Zoran Mandami had criticized Trump's move, calling it illegal. You put these things to the Venezuelans. They must have been furious that liberals in Montreal who had never set foot in Venezuela called this tyrant a man of the people when he had 800 political prisoners. How did they react to that? I mean, I guess it's not just Canadians and this New York mayor. A lot of leftists, they sort of loved Venezuela because it was anti-American.
The people reacted as, did those people live under dictatorship? Did those people actually live in Venezuela, Cuba, or other dictatorship country? So they cannot say anything if they didn't actually experience what it is to search for food, to sometimes have no electricity, to have no freedom of speech or no freedom of opinion. So those people who are on the street, are they pay? Are they friend of the regime? Or are they just ignorant? Because, sometimes virtue signaling is something that the leftists like to do. But in the same time, what we are seeing right now, they side with the oppressor instead of siding with the oppressed.
So the reason we're here, it's representing all political prisoners in our country, Venezuela, who have been tortured. And right now, as you can see, there are more than 300 political prisoners, which we don't have communication with them.
Now, you interviewed a lot of people, and I haven't seen all of your interviews yet. Some of them I really liked. Like, there was this beautiful young girl, almost looked like a model, and she was talking passionately about freedom. And I couldn't help but think, and I know it's not about looks aren't everything, but it made me think of when I was at Columbia University in downtown New York, and I went to their encampment, their pro-Hamas encampment, and it was sort of crazy. The people with, every transgender activist was there, people with every color hair and piercings, and like it was really radical, and people were displaying themselves in radical ways, and it just felt like a real and by the way, I'm not against people having freedom to style themselves in any way, but it was such a contrast with this young, beautiful woman who was talking to you about freedom as opposed to these antisocial people at Columbia who were anti-America, anti-freedom, and of course, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic. I just want to play that one clip. And I thought to myself, to have a beautiful young woman so inspired about freedom, that is appealing. I don't know. And I don't just think it's because I'm a man. I just think everyone of every background, of every race, of both sexes, of every nation, I think they want to be free, and I think they want their home to be a safe place. And this woman seemed to crystallize it. Here's that interview that I really liked.
The happiness all of our Venezuelan people have inside and have been wanting to celebrate for all these 24 years. Definitely, I think it's something we not only have to celebrate, but thank our President Trump, because if it wasn't for him, nothing would be possible. But yeah, I'm super grateful and thankful we're all here celebrating and united.
I thought she was great, but who was your favorite interview? You talked to the mayor. In fact, I heard you just bumped into the mayor by coincidence. Tell me a little bit about that. And she's a daughter of, I think, refugees from Cuba, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so we were marching into the crowd, and we realized that the woman in question was wearing the mayor shirt. And so I asked nicely if she was a mayor, and she said yes. And I say, do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions? And really friendly, she said yes. Like, there were no like, okay, I'm just going to check with my media relation or anything. She just agreed. Like, it was just something so you see that they are there for their people. They are there for showing their support. And it's what I really appreciate. And she's born in the US, but her family is from Cuba and had to flee Cuba. And she kind of recounted a little bit her story. And as well, she hoped the same thing happening in Cuba, because Cuba has been in this situation longer, but it's really more complex than Venezuela. And also because Cuba has been the school for dictatorship.
Right.
Chavez and other dictators have learned a lot from Cuba.
Right. That's terrifying. Here, let's play just a moment of that interview. Again, I found this woman very appealing, very compelling. I just felt that she spoke from the heart, and it was sort of a family feeling. That's how it felt. It almost felt like people were there from an extended family. And some of them were family members, of course, with each other. Here's just an extract of your interview with the mayor of Doral, which is a suburb of Miami. Take a look.
And what is the next for Cuba? Because there's so many Cubans that went out in the streets, has hope. Yeah. Do you think Cuba is next?
I do. I think that, first of all, we're living vicariously through the Venezuelan people because we wanted this for our country for so long. It's been 70 years of oppression in Cuba. I was actually born here. I'm a first-generation American from my family. But I've heard the stories that my grandparents have told for years. They left, 65 years ago and have never been able to go back. They lost family members they never got to say goodbye to. It's very sad to think about those things. I do believe Cuba could be next in a very different way. I don't think there's going to be military action or anything like that, but I think that the restructuring of Venezuela is going to dry up the economic resources that were being fed to Cuba by the Venezuelan government. And that is going to make that last leg fall. And I think it will allow pressures to be put for real change and for a real democratic election so that the people of Cuba can also have an opportunity to rebuild. This is the weakest the Cuban government has ever been. And it's because the Venezuelan resources have dried up to give to Cuba. So we do have to take advantage of this moment. And Trump made it very clear that this was the opportunity to do that as well, and they weren't going to stay behind. I don't think many dictators are going to be able to continue through the last 3 years of Trump, in those situations. And again, I think that especially in the Western Hemisphere that has been ignored for so long, the priority has been shifted because it does affect our national security. They've allowed new players to come into this region that are not friends of the United States, and I think that the president and our Secretary of State, who understands this issue very, very well, have their eyes on them.
Well, listen, there's still so much to be done. I was reading in the New York Times that the winner of the last election, in fact, one of whom won the Nobel Peace Prize last year, that the Trump administration is worried that they don't have the authority and, leadership to simply just take over the government. And thus, Trump is still dealing with the tyrannical regime. I mean, it's a very complex thing. How do you affect regime change on a large country with a powerful executive? Like I say, they just took that one guy out. So all the henchmen, all the secret police, all the torture, all the bad things are still in place, and Trump is trying to negotiate a regime change, which I don't know if it's ever been done. I suppose it has been done before, but to do it without a massive occupation on the ground. Like I was recently watching a show about the surrender of Japan, and the great military general Douglas MacArthur, who became sort of the governor of Japan and worked with the emperor and rebuilt Japan. It was run by America. It was run by a general. But there were thousands of American soldiers on the ground. Trump doesn't want that. Trump doesn't want to put 100,000 soldiers in Venezuela. He wants to have a regime change to move towards a liberal democracy without that. I don't know if it's possible to do it, but I'm certainly rooting for him, and I guess a lot of people in Miami are too.
Because first of all, there is still terrorists. There is still a lot of gangs, as Tren de Aragua. There is still the Maduro regime in place. There is the Sun. There is so many people that will need to comply to Trump's demand. I don't know how you do that with so many different groups, so different gangs, but that will remains to see. But everybody on the ground, it's unanimous. They all want Marina Machado
Yeah.
as the next leader of Venezuela, because as they say, she won the last election, but she had to leave Venezuela, and it's not safe for her to come back since the regime is still there.
Right. Well, it's a diplomatic challenge, but Trump has been known to solve extremely difficult challenges. I point to the Abraham Accords, where Israel, in an agreement negotiated by Trump and his staff, there's 5 or 6 countries now, Arab Muslim countries, with a peace treaty with Israel, which was thought to be unthinkable. So I think if anyone can do it, Trump can do it. And that was a theme also. Well, listen, thanks again for going down on such short notice. I remember calling you up on Saturday and saying, get ready, go to the airport. And you did right away. Thank you for doing that on behalf of Rebel News viewers. And folks, if you want to help chip in to cover the cost, I have to say it was a little bit more expensive than we thought it would be buying last minute tickets. I have to tell you, everyone in Miami, that seems to be quite a vacation hotspot for Torontonians. So those flights were a little more expensive than we would have liked. If you can help us cover that, please go to VenezuelaIsFree.com. And we're going to keep an eye on this story because we, you know, how I end my show every day, I said, keep fighting for freedom. Well, here's Venezolanos and Cubanos fighting for freedom with all their hearts. And I'm really glad that you were there. And through you, I really felt the emotional warmth of these people and their hope. And boy, I hope the story ends well. Thanks again, Alexa. We'll keep an eye on this story.
And I just want to mention quickly, my flight for going to Miami, I was sitting next to a family from Colombia, and they were so happy. They were so happy. And them too, they hope that this will impact Colombia. So let's see what the future will hold. But thanks for sending me over there, because I think it was something really revealing.
Well, you were a great ambassador for Rebel News, and you made so many friends, including a mayor, a city councilor. You talked to everybody, and those will be good contacts if we go back on the story in the future. Take care, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, there you have it. Alexa Lavoie, who went down with Efrain Monsanto to cover the story. I'm glad we have people who had the ability to communicate. I mean, obviously, a lot of these folks spoke English, but also in Spanish where required. Stay with us. Your letters to me next.